Hello and welcome to another episode of The Word for Kids. I'm Jaymie and I'm guiding you through the books of Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. Last time we learned about Joshua and his army going up against the people of Ai. The Lord told them to set up an ambush, so Joshua set up men on one side of the city, then approached from another side. When all of their men came out to chase after Joshua, the soldiers in hiding rushed in and took the city. Then they trapped the men who had chased after Joshua and completely destroyed everyone who lived in that town. They were able to do this because the Lord was with them. Then Joshua built an altar, offered sacrifices, and wrote down on stones all of the laws the Lord had given to Moses. He read all of these to every person among the Israelites. And that's where we left off last time. Are you ready for today's adventure? Let's go. Now, when all of the kings of all of the cities west of the Jordan River heard about these things, meaning the way the Israelites had completely destroyed Jericho and Ai, they decided to come together and wage war against Joshua and the Israelites. However, there was one group of people from a place called Gibeon who resorted to a ruse. This means they were planning to trick the Israelites. They sent a group of people to represent them whose donkeys were loaded with worn-out sacks and old wineskins, cracked and mended. They put worn and patched sandals on their feet, and they wore old clothes. They took dry and moldy bread. They came to Joshua and said, "We have come from a distant country. Make a treaty with us." Okay, let's take a break right there for today's word of the day.
The word of the day is treaty, an agreement of peace, a promise between people not to harm each other. Treaty.
You see, they were pretending they had traveled a really long way from home, that they didn't have people nearby to help them fight, and that they were tired and weak. In reality, they were not from far away, but they did not want to end up fighting against the Israelites, probably because they recognized that they would not stand a chance against Joshua and the Israelites. So, when they asked the Israelites to make a treaty with them, the Israelites were suspicious. "But perhaps you live near us. How can we make a treaty with you?" they asked. The people said to Joshua, "We are your servants." "Who are you and where do you come from?" he asked. They answered, "Your servants have come from a very distant country because of the fame of the Lord your God, for we have heard reports of him, all that he did in Egypt and all that he did to the 2 kings east of the Jordan. Our elders said to us, 'Take provisions for your journey. Go and meet them and say to them, "We are your servants. Make a treaty with us." This bread was warm on the day we packed it at home, but now it's dry and moldy. And these wineskins we have were new. But see how cracked and worn they are? And our clothes and our sandals are worn out from this very long journey." The Israelites sampled their provisions, but did not inquire of the Lord. Uh-oh, that was a mistake. They didn't ask God what they should do, so they were tricked. And Joshua signed a treaty of peace with them to let them live, and the leaders made it official with an oath. 3 days later, the Israelites learned that the Gibeonites were actually neighbors of theirs, so they set off and came to their cities. But the Israelites didn't attack them because of their oath. The whole assembly grumbled against the leaders, but the leaders reminded them, "We have given them our oath by the Lord, the God of Israel, and we cannot touch them now. This is what we will do to them. We will let them live so that God's wrath will not fall on us for breaking the oath we swore to them. We'll let them live, but make them woodcutters and water carriers for the whole assembly." Joshua summoned, or called out, the Gibeonites and asked, "Why did you deceive us by saying we live a long way from you, while actually you live near us? You are now under a curse. You will never be released from service as woodcutters and water carriers for the house of my God." They answered Joshua, "Your servants were clearly told how the Lord your God had commanded his servant Moses to give you the whole land and to wipe out all its inhabitants from before you. So we feared for our lives because of you, and that is why we did this. we are now in your hands. Do to us whatever seems good and right to you." So Joshua saved them from the Israelites, and they did not kill them. That day he made the Gibeonites woodcutters and water carriers for the assembly to provide for the needs of the altar of the Lord at the place the Lord would choose. And that is where they are to this day. Now, the king of Jerusalem, named Adonizedek, heard about how Joshua had totally destroyed Ai, just as he had Jericho, and that the people of Gibeon had made a treaty with the Israelites. This was alarming because Gibeon was a large and important city with good fighting men. So he gathered the kings from 4 other towns nearby and said to them, "Come up and help me attack Gibeon, because they have made a treaty with Joshua and the Israelites." So these 5 Amorite kings joined forces and moved up with all their troops to attack Gibeon. The Gibeonites sent word to Joshua, "Do not abandon your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings from the hill country have joined forces against us." So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his entire army, including all the best fighting men. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not be afraid of them. I have given them into your hand. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." After an all-night march from Gilgal, Joshua took them by surprise. The Lord threw them into confusion before Israel, so Joshua and the Israelites defeated them completely at Gibeon. Now Israel pursued them along a road, and as they fled from the Israelites back down the road, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them, and more of them died from the hailstones than from the Israelites' swords. On the day that the Lord gave the Amorites over to Israel, Joshua said to the Lord in front of all the people, "Sun, stand still over Gibeon, and you, moon, over the valley of Ajalon." So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped until the Israelites defeated their enemies. The sun stopped in the middle of the sky and didn't go down for about a full day. Can you imagine a day when the sun didn't go down? How strange would that be? There has never been a day like it before or since. Surely the Lord was fighting for Israel. And that's where our story ends for today. Whew, that was a long one. Now, it's time for today's verse to remember. Today's verse is Psalm 25:10. "All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful toward those who keep the demands of his covenant." One more time. "All the ways of the Lord are loving and faithful toward those who keep the demands of his covenant." That's all the time we have for this episode. I'll see you again soon for another episode of The Word for Kids.